The story of Poppyseed. In a magic land far, far away, a tidy cottage once sat perched on a gentle slope called Poppyseed Hill. In the cottage lived a kindly old woman named Miss Kessie. Miss Kessie's constant companion was a happy little mouse named Mosky. Miss Kessie loved Mosky, but she longed for other company as well. Sometimes she visited the old caretaker, who lived at the bottom of the hill, but still Miss Kessie was lonely. The reason that Miss Kessie had no visitors was simple. A river curved around the bottom of Poppyseed Hill, and in the river lived a terrible monster. When people from the village on the other side of the river tried to row over Poppyseed Hill, the monster grew very angry. Glue Glue, as he was called, thrashed his huge body in the water and made giant waves that splashed on the shore. Wind from his wild movements bent the trees by the river's edge. Finally, no one tried to cross the river anymore, and Miss Kessie gave up hoping for visitors. Late one summer's night, however, Miss Kessie heard a soft knock at her door. When she opened it, she was astonished to see a beautiful little girl with coal-black eyes. Behind her was a whole band of tired little children, and a small gray kitten, too. "We are sorry to bother you so late," said the child, "but we've been on a long, long journey. Tonight we find our way through the deep, dark woods on the other side of the hill, and could not go any further." "Come in, children," said Miss Kessie. "Poor things, you must be starved." Miss Kessie did not really understand how the children had come to her door, but she did not question them. They were so tired that they could not remember how their journey had begun, or even what their names had been. In the cozy kitchen, Miss Kessie gave each child a warm bowl of stew and a poppy seed roll. They ate the food hungrily. It was clear to Miss Kessie that the children needed a home. "You're welcome to live here with me," she said. "I would like to have you stay." She went on to say that life was fine on Poppyseed Hill, except for one problem. The problem was the Glue Glue monster. The children answered that they wanted to live with Miss Kessie in spite of the monster in the river. Hearing this, Miss Kessie was happier than she had been in a very long time. Then she decided that the children needed names. What could Miss Kessie call them? First, she named the girl with the coal-black eyes, calling her Poppyseed, in honor of the beautiful poppies that grew on Poppyseed Hill. But for the life of her, Miss Kessie couldn't think of names for the other children. Then she noticed the spices on her shelf. Surely these children could bring some spice back into her life. She would name them after her favorite spices. The boy in the bright red cap, who was in fact Poppyseed's dearest friend, was named Oregano. When Miss Kessie named the next three children, she changed the way each spice was spelled to make their children's names more special. The earnest little fellow in the sailor suit was called Bayleaf. Tarragon was the bouncy little girl in pigtails who always tried hard to keep up with Poppyseed. The red-haired girl with the round straw hat was named Cinnamint, for two good spices, cinnamon and mint. The last child, a quiet little black girl, was named Mocha. In the days that followed, Miss Kessie and the children lived happily together on Poppyseed Hill. Never did the children try to cross the river down below, for they remembered what Miss Kessie had told them, to stay away from the Glue Glue monster. Mosky Mouse followed Poppyseed everywhere. When she went to pick apples, he scrambled up the tree for her and dropped down the brightest red apples he could find. All the children found ways to help Miss Kessie. Oregano chopped kindling for the stove. Bayleaf fetched water at the pump. The others helped hang out the wash and gather fresh flowers for the table. One day, Poppyseed took freshly baked cookies down the hill to the caretaker. While she was there, she saw children from the village playing on the other side of the river. "If that monster didn't get angry," Poppyseed said to the caretaker, "we could cross the river and play with those children." The caretaker, a wise old man with elf-like features, answered Poppyseed mysteriously, saying, "Hear me well and do not listen to the monster's angry song. Hear another deep within where songs belong." Poppyseed asked the caretaker to explain his words. When he would not, she walked slowly back up the hill. Inside the cottage, she told Miss Kessie how very much she would like to play with the children on the riverbank. Miss Kessie had an idea. If Poppyseed and the others couldn't play with the children across the river, at least they could send them cookies. The cookies could be carried across by the friendly white doves that lived on Poppyseed Hill. The beautiful doves were happy to help Miss Kessie and the children. Fresh cookies were quickly wrapped in packages little enough for the birds to carry. Soon one white dove after another was flying across the river. When the children on the other side received the little packages, they clapped their hands with delight. Suddenly the waters in the river began to churn. A wind came up and the sky darkened. It was the angry monster, turning day into night. Each time a dove crossed the river, the monster stirred the waters more furiously. Waves crashed on the shore and began to flood the caretaker's house. The storm was so fierce that Miss Kessie and the children stopped sending the birds across the river. The doves returned to their roost. Little by little, the waters calmed and the monster's tail disappeared from sight. Late in the afternoon, Poppyseed and Mosky Mouse walked down the hill to talk to the caretaker. Poppyseed was troubled by the day's events. "Tell me, please," she said to the caretaker, "why was the monster so angry today? We were just trying to do something nice for the children across the river. We try to do nice things for everyone." "Everyone?" said the old man. Then he spoke in his mysterious way once more, saying, "Sometimes what is very near is hard to see and hard to hear." Poppyseed looked unhappy. What was the caretaker trying to tell her? Then, all of a sudden, Poppyseed knew the answer. "I've got it," she cried. "Thank you, caretaker. I have to go tell Miss Kessie and the others." Poppyseed ran up the hill so fast that Mosky had trouble keeping up with her. She burst into the cottage where Miss Kessie was reading to the children. "Excuse me, Miss Kessie," she said, "but I've just figured out why the monster gets so mad when we go near the river. It's because we don't pay any attention to him. We haven't tried to be his friend." Miss Kessie thought Poppyseed just might be right. She suggested that they bake a monster-sized cookie the very next day and offer it to Glue Glue as a present. Right after breakfast the next morning, the children gathered around to help Miss Kessie mix a very large batch of cookie dough. A cookbook lay nearby unopened. Miss Kessie knew the recipe by heart. She explained to the children that they would bake the cookie in sections, then glue the sections together with icing. The monster's cookie would have to be big, nearly as big as the kitchen table. While the others worked, Mosky Mouse made up a little baking song. "Mix and measure, stir and bake, not a pie, not a cake. Just one cookie full of spice, Miss Kessie's cookie will be nice." When the cookie was nearly finished, Poppyseed wrote a poem for the monster. She did not know if Glue Glue could read, but she wanted to give it to him just in case he could. Then Poppyseed, Tarragon, and Mosky went down the poppy-covered hillside and began to weave a crown of crimson flowers for the monster. Tarragon was excited and danced across the field as she gathered flowers. Mosky, however, was nervous about meeting the monster. "We don't know how big he is," said the little mouse. "How shall we know what size to make his crown?" "Don't worry about the size, Mosky," said Poppyseed. "The important thing is, will Glue Glue accept our presents at all?" By the time the children started down the river with their gifts, it was late afternoon. All of them were a little afraid of meeting the monster. Miss Kessie came along to give the children courage. The caretaker met Poppyseed at the bottom of the hill. They looked out at the river, but the monster was nowhere to be seen. Poppyseed began to hope that they wouldn't see the monster after all. The old caretaker tried to encourage her. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Just call out his name, the way you would call to a friend." Poppyseed walked nearer to the water's edge. "Glue Glue," she called. "Where are you? We have presents for you." The other children reached the bottom of the hill, and they too began to call, "Glue Glue, where are you?" Then Poppyseed and Oregano saw dark whirlpools in the flowing river. That meant the monster was there, and he heard them calling. Oregano spotted a round bump in the top of the water. It was the top of the monster's head. Suddenly, the monster rose quietly from the water. Glue Glue was huge. Poppyseed's heart beat very fast. Oregano looked pale and began pulling back from the river's edge. "Oregano, we mustn't run away," whispered Poppyseed, even though she too was very frightened. "Quick, give him the cookie." "Here, Glue Glue," said Oregano, his voice trembling. "This cookie is for you." The monster lowered his head toward Oregano and slowly opened his enormous mouth. Oregano was very afraid. He thought Glue Glue was going to eat him up, but the monster just looked steadily at the boy as he reached for the big cookie. Not only did Glue Glue like his cookie, but he also let Poppyseed put the crown of flowers on his head. He even smiled when she read him her poem. Then he gestured to all the children as if inviting them onto his back. Miss Cassie couldn't believe her eyes. The monster wasn't a monster at all. He was altogether friendly. Miss Cassie stood on shore with the caretaker while Glue Glue gently carried the children across the river. At last they could visit the children on the other side. Never again were Poppyseed and the others afraid of the monster, and the children in the village also learned to trust Glue Glue. Whenever they wanted to visit Poppyseed, he ferried them across the river as smoothly as he was able. The days that followed were busy and happy. There were cookies to bake for Glue Glue and hugs and kisses to give Miss Cassie. In the evenings, Bayleaf played his violin while the sun sank slowly down. The song that Bayleaf played was a song to say thank you for a snug cottage on a gentle slope, a home on Poppyseed Hill.